All right, how is it going, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Robbie Basel Show. I'm your host, Robbie Basel. It's July 10th. It's a Monday episode. And that means we have so much stuff to preview from the weekend, including an announcement for a podcast I'm going to be on not this coming weekend, but next weekend. More to come on that later. Of course, our topics today are going to be Wimbledon updates and what's gone over the weekend, including a big preview of a crucial matchup for a person that I had as a favorite to win the tournament, including other matchups as well from Wimbledon, Gold Cup updates. We had F1 go absolutely crazy this weekend, and the MLB first half is concluded on over the weekend. Let's see how they did. Let's give you an update of what's going on. But we'll start with Wimbledon, and we'll start with the men's side. And I talked about a couple of big matchups to watch for, and we had Francis Tiafoe, the highest ranked American left, lose to Dimitrov. But there was another American who made some noise. More to come on that in a second. We had, I think, the match of the third round with Holger Rune and Davidovich Fokina. I talked about that match, but on the end, or I think the beginnings when I talked about it, when I was talking about the third round matchups, I said this was a matchup to watch. It didn't disappoint. 5-set thriller, including a crucial tiebreak, 10-8 win in the fifth set in the tiebreak for Holger Rune, beating Davidovich Fokina. You had Alcaraz, Tsitsipas, Medvedev, Eubanks beat O'Connell, and then Tommy Paul getting upset by Lehecka, excuse me. And then we had Berrettini defeat Zverev in straight sets. Very interesting results from Saturday. On Sunday, I talked about Herbert Hurkacz a couple back in my tournament preview, and I thought Herbert Hurkacz could beat Novak. He could beat Alcaraz, and I was wrong. Though he wasn't a pushover. Herbert Hurkacz went to two tiebreakers and won a set 7-5. Flip those two tiebreakers the other way, and Herbert Hurkacz wins this match. So, interesting note, Herbert Hurkacz threw up a good fight. Could he be competing for majors in the future? Something to watch out for in the future, for sure. We had Shapovalov go out like a whimper somewhat after winning the opening set, having all the confidence in the world, losing to Sefilin in 4 sets. We had Yannick Sinner beat Galan, and we had Rublev beat Bublik from, I believe that's Kazakhstan. I'm not 100% sure on flags, but Rublev goes through as well. And then we had our matchups from today. And another matchup with Holger, and that was a very interesting one to watch, and that was against Grigor Dimitrov of Bulgaria. Dimitrov won the opening set, and then a hard-fought 3 sets later, Holger Rune comes out with a victory in 4 sets. There's a moment in that match where they thought, like, the announcers thought a point could have gone the other way because he was, like, yelling because Holger was trying to challenge a play, and he didn't really have any challenges left. It's one of those moments, and they thought it could have been, like, a distraction and a point for Dimitrov, but Dimitrov didn't argue it. He played it out, and Holger Rune won the match eventually. And we had, I think, the biggest upset of the tournament on the men's side, not the matchup with Casper Ruud losing, but Tsitsipas losing to Eubanks. So an American has reached the quarterfinals at Wimbledon again. This time he'll have a very an interesting path to the final. In Eubanks beating Tsitsipas, we had Medvedev get a walkover win over Lehecka, and we had Alcaraz, after dropping the opening set, winning in 4 sets. It was 3-6 and then 3 straight set wins of 6-3 to advance to his quarterfinal matchup. And we'll have matchups tomorrow. We have Rublev and Djokovic. That is going to be my matchup of the day to watch out for most likely. We have also Yannick Sinner and Sefilin on court 1, so a lot to watch out for tomorrow for sure. And then on Wednesday, we have Medvedev and Eubanks, and Alcaraz and Holger Rune. I think it's the matchup of the quarterfinals. I think that's an unfortunate draw for Holger Rune. They'll really prove how good he is, that's for sure. Can he beat Alcaraz? My favorite to win against the betting odds favorite to win. Should be an interesting one for sure. That match is on Wednesday. The time has not been announced yet for that match, but that'll be something interesting to watch out for sure. And I'll be able to preview all the finals. Semifinals, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to preview since that next podcast comes out on Friday night. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to preview those matches, but I'll be able to preview, guys, the men's and women's final. And speaking of the women's side, we head to them next. And we had some very interesting results from Saturday. First of all, Ons Jabeur drops the opening set to Bianca Andreescu and then comes out and wins. which raised some red flags for some people. And she shut some of those haters down a little later on. More to come on that in a second. We had Sabalenka beat Blinkova. Alexandrova wins. Haddad Maya, Kvitova, Madison Keys, and Rybakina. Madison Keys and Rybakina both winning in straight sets to 6-4, 6-1 for Madison Keys, and then 6-1 twice for Rybakina over Boltier. And then Kvitova and Haddad Maya also won in straight sets. So setting up match, and they'll all advance to the next round. And we had Svitolina upset Azarenka. We had Iga Swiatek drop the opening set in a tiebreak, win a tiebreak in the second set, and then go out and beat Bencic in 3 sets. Very interesting matchup to watch out for sure. It's going to be interesting to see how Swiatek bounces back after a very hard-fought win over Bencic. We had Potapova lose to Andreeva. We had Boskova, I did say that right, lose to Vondrousova, the Battle of the Czech Republic players. We had Jessica Pegula win in straight sets, and Svitolina upset Azarenka, as mentioned before. Setting up our matchups today, we had Ons Jabeur. What a performance over Kvitova, winning in straight sets, 6-love, 6-3. We had Sabalenka over Alexandrova. Madison Keys wins again. And Rybakina got a walkover win over Haddad Maya, setting up your quarterfinal matchups to be Pegula from the USA and Vondrousova of the Czech Republic. We had Iga Swiatek, the number 1 seed, play Svitolina of Ukraine. Of course, Swiatek being from Poland. On Wednesday, we have Ons Jabeur of Tunisia take on Rybakina of Kazakhstan. And then we have Madison Keys of the USA take on Sabalenka, I believe, from Russia. Since there's like no flag, I'm not 100% sure. So it'll be very interesting to see my matchup to watch on the women's side, Jabeur, Rybakina. Both of them are good enough players to win this whole tournament. They're both top 6 seeds for a reason, but very interesting to see how those two play that matchup out for sure. I think whoever wins that matchup, I think could possibly win the whole thing. But my favorite to win, which is Jabeur, going up in a very interesting matchup against Rybakina. That will be a lot of fun to watch. So Wimbledon has been interesting. No, it's been more interesting and concerning the Gold Cup. And that's where we head next. And we will begin with our matchups from Saturday. And we had Mexico beating Costa Rica after having a 0-0 draw through 45 minutes. We had Oberlin Pineda score a penalty, and then Eric Sanchez score for Mexico to give them a 2-0 win to advance to another CONCACAF Gold Cup semifinal, trying to advance to another final in the Gold Cup as they've lost to the United States back in 2021. So, I mean, if you look at the stats, the possession was very even, but Costa Rica had 1 shot on target the whole match. Not very intimidating of a result from Costa Rica. I mean, they didn't do enough to really put themselves in a position to win this match. And Mexico, looking good. I doubted them in the beginning. That really proved me wrong. You know who else has proven me wrong? Panama. They went out and won. Ismael Diaz with a hat trick, and Edgar Joel Barcenas Herrera, who scored the opener, and then Diaz scores 3. Qatar looked terrible. I mean, I had too much faith in Qatar, and that's just how I'm going to put it. You thought they were going to throw their whole A squad, and they did not look very good. I mean, Almoez Ali, you had a lot of other players. They had a very not deep squad, and that's what happens in these tournaments. So Qatar is done in a disappointing 2023 Gold Cup. Panama will advance to the semifinals, but who will they play? Mexico and Panama? Who do they play next? We'll start at Mexico's matchup, and the only way I can describe this Jamaica and Guatemala match is CONCACAF refs. They're not very good sometimes. Here's how I'm going to put it. They're either on the top echelon and better than UEFA refs, or they're useless sometimes. Sometimes. It's very rarely that we get to that stage. And you saw what could happen in CONCACAF as Guatemala got screwed a little bit, but I mean, statistically, Jamaica looked better. I mean, the possession numbers don't justify it, but 18 shots to 11. Jamaica on paper should have won this match, but shout out to Guatemala. They had a great showing at this tournament, really trying to promote their game and hopefully maybe make a dark horse run at World Cup 2026. Can they make the final round? That'll be something to watch out for sure. But Guatemala led a lot of stats in this match. Could be raising some red flags for Jamaica as they play Mexico in the semifinals on Wednesday. And then we had the United States of America play Canada. I was able to watch this entire match. Let me say this. United States didn't look good in the first, I'll say 60 minutes of this match. Couldn't put shots on target. Difficult to break down the Canadian defense. Not many men in the box. The substitute that I talked about him in the preview video for this tournament back in that soccer video where I talked about Africa, Europe, and the Gold Cup. I talked about Brandon Vasquez, and he made an impact again. He scores again. His third goal of the tournament. I think it's their second leading goal scorer, of course, behind the double hat tricks from Ferreira. The United States outshot Canada 21-5, but only could back 2 goals. And then a costly penalty, Miles Robinson getting a handball in the box. Victoria scores to equalize, and then Schaffelberg with a glorious run and a great shot to go 2-1 up. And then a terrible break where, if you know the Premier League, there was this one moment this season where a ball went off of Emi Martinez, the goalkeeper for Aston Villa's Arsenal against, I believe it was Villa. And it went off like Martinez or went off somebody else, and it went in the goal. That's basically what happened for the second goal for the United States. They get bailed in the 114th minute. Everyone goes crazy. The United States look great. Statistically, when on the pitch, I just don't know. They're playing Panama, who are red hot, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know how this matchup is not going to be a pushover. Nothing's going to be a pushover when you throw your B squad against a lot of 18 players. I mean, granted, Panama's heading down on their downward spiral. I think so, at least. But really, a lot of teams have made them look really good. El Salvador, Costa Rica made them look good. Qatar granted, they looked really bad, but they made Panama look like they were playing like as the top 3 would in USA, Mexico, and now Canada, of course. So the United States then went to penalties, and the first 3 penalties total taken were missed. Brandon Vasquez sailed his. 2 were missed by Canada. The U.S. eventually goes on to win, and they will advance to play Panama on Wednesday. Let's talk about that matchup, actually. Panama, let's talk about how they got here. Panama, they've had we talked about them having a group of death in the qualifying in that whole soccer video. And I remember they got they finished 4th in the Nations League. I thought they were going to be competitive. I thought they're going to get grouped. I thought El Salvador would be on the rise. No, I was totally wrong. You beat Costa Rica, you beat Martinique, and you tie El Salvador to get 7 points and move out of the group in first. Then you go out and beat Qatar. This is how you bounce back after a disappointing Nations League final weekend. You go lose to Canada. You go and lose to Mexico 1-0. You go and then play Qatar and play very well in your group. That's very impressive from Panama. I got messages a lot over the weekend, and that there was like, Panama, they're my dark horse going in. I didn't expect this from them. I don't think a lot of people did. I expected some smaller nations to really make them some noise. That was El Salvador. Remember, I predicted them going to the semifinals. It just wasn't meant to be. How many semifinals teams do I have from this? I think I have 2. It's the United States. Actually, that's the only one. The United States is the only team I have making the semifinals on the forward predictions. So not great predictions by me for sure, but yeah, Panama made a lot of noise. They're really going to try to push up the field. They tried that against Canada. It didn't really work back in the Nations League. I'm very interested to see how they play them, though, because in their last match, if we look at the lineups, they went out and played probably more like a 5-2-3. It looks like a 3-4-3 on the sheets, but it's really like a 5-2-3, maybe even a 5-3, a 5-4-1. I'm very interested to play this. We know about Quintero. That Diaz had the hat trick. Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how the United States defense locks them down for sure. But I'm interested to see if there's any changes. Maybe we go 2 strikers with Vasquez and Ferreira, because Ferreira did not look very good. He had I think he had a very low match rating. He did convert a penalty, but he didn't do very much for me to impress like anyone. And make his name known because remember he had so many goals in the group stage against bad teams, which we all knew St. Kitts was going to be bad. We did not expect. I didn't expect Trinidad to get blown out by the United States like that. How defensive they are, I didn't expect that at all. But here we are, U.S. Panama. They are the first matchup on Wednesday at 7:30, and now it's time to go over Jamaica and Mexico. Mexico walking over their group. They got sort of. They had a very interesting road. I thought they're gonna finish in second. They're gonna lose to Qatar. They did lose to Qatar, but won their other two matches. 3-1 over Haiti, and then the 4-0 over Honduras. That actually proved very costly. That result 4-0 over Honduras, because if Honduras only lost by 1, Honduras would be through over because of the head-to-head, and because Honduras beat Qatar. Actually, they drew Qatar. Excuse me. So, I mean, one more goal from Honduras could have knocked out Qatar, but at the end of the day, Mexico, they look decent. They didn't throw many starters on the field against Qatar, and they didn't really have to. So I'm very interested to see how the rest of this plays out for them. And Jamaica, they are very top heavy. They have Leon Bailey, Kamar Roof. They had their goal scorer for Mari Bell. They have other decent players. And the Reggae boys, they're going to come out firing. They're very fast. They're very technical on the ball. I'm very interested to see how the Mexican defense and I'm very interested to see how Mexico lines up, because last time we saw Mexico line up, they went with a 4-1-4-1, which you don't really see out of the Mexican national team. I don't think so very much. I'm interested to see if they go with like something like a 4-3-3 to counter that 4-2. Like they didn't go with that to counter against the Costa Rican 4-2-3-1, but you can go 4-1-4-1, you can go 4-2-3-1. There's a lot of formations that you can use to counter a team like a Jamaica or a team like a Costa Rica. I'm just very interested to see formation wise what Jamaica go with, because they do have some options, and if they don't make any adjustments to what they've done recently, I think Mexico can wipe the floor with them, possibly setting up another USA-Mexico final. Who do I have winning these matchups? You have to back USA and Mexico to get through these matches. The United States, we saw them struggle in their opening match against Jamaica, and then they bounced back with now 3 straight big wins. But they struggled in that third one. I think this could be another matchup where you really see them bounce back. Matt Turner made some great saves. He's been great in this tournament for sure. For me, he's probably the Golden Glove winner if I had to choose one right now, or Ochoa. But yeah, I mean, this should be a lot of fun. But Mexico as well, their defense has been solid. Cesar Montes, they've had other players really contribute. So Cesar Montes was the one that came to my mind first. But the Gold Cup's been a lot of fun. But you know what else was a lot of fun this week? Formula One. I didn't expect that at all, because if you look at the British Grand Prix, one team really took the whole thing by storm. And that's a team that I had no hope in a couple months ago. Those are the Papaya Boys and McLaren. As we look at qualifying, I'll go over the top 6. We have Verstappen and Lando Norris in the McLaren go P2. Then we had Oscar Piastri go P3. It's Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and George Russell. And of course, I had to mention Lewis Hamilton, because he'll be a crucial part coming up later in this segment. And then we had a Williams and Albon, Alonso, and Gasly, just to name out the rest of the top 10. But the crucial one that's missing here is Sergio Perez, who went out in Q2. He finished 15th. So yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting qualifying session. It was dry and wet, and then the race goes on, and I was able to watch the whole thing this time. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but this time I was able to in my hotel room here in Georgia. And there was one moment where at the end of the race, towards the end, there was a safety car. Magnussen's car basically caught fire. McLaren went to the hard tire. If we've seen anything that's happened, if we remember last year, if you've watched F1 before, you have to remember that Ferrari had the hard tire on Charles Leclerc, and it didn't work late in the race. That's why Carlos Sainz won. And I thought we were going to see a repeat of that. And I was wrong. Lando Norris held on. He held on to that P2 position. And Hamilton, who his car looked really good, he finished in 3rd. Oscar Piastri finished in 4th. Of course, Max won. We were all expecting that. But Lando I think, is the first racer in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, it feels like, to be leading a race not That's not a Red Bull. So that's good for McLaren. I think a boost of confidence for both Lando, Lewis at Mercedes, but he thought that McLaren looked like a rocket ship. Remember, Lewis has been very always had a high praise for McLaren since he raced at McLaren back in the late 2000s. So, and of course, I believe he won a world title there. But yeah, it's been very interesting. But I mean, what's really weird is AlphaTauri being the last two spots. I don't know what you do with both of them. Can we see one being sacked at the end of the year? Also, we almost saw Logan Sargent get a point. That was really sad. He was 4 seconds off. But yeah, a very interesting F1 weekend. And this is what I'm going to mention this. Next week, not this coming week, next week, when we go to Hungary, I will be on the Starting Grid podcast again with Rome and Shane. I'm so excited to go back. I was there for Miami. I had a very fun time. They enjoyed me. I said they asked me to come back. I'm like, absolutely. So next week, I'll be on Saturday and Sunday on the Starting Grid podcast. It should be a lot of fun. I'm really pumped to be back with the guys. But yeah, make sure to go over to their podcast. They are on Spotify. Just search up the Starting Grid podcast or search them up on Instagram to get the link over there. They're also now apparently on Apple Podcasts. Shout out to my friend Rome who told me that today. So yeah, if you want to go check them out, make sure you search them up on Instagram or on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. But we'll head back. That's why we're not going to talk about Hungaroring in a week. Most likely not talk about Hungaroring because we have the whole soccer recap video that comes out next week. We also have recaps, previews of the Open, recaps of Wimbledon, and some other things that were going on. So we have a lot to talk about next week, that's for sure. But remember, next Friday, the video before Hungary, the F1 race, are going to do the whole, I believe that's going to be Friday or Monday. I'm not 100% sure, but I still have to recap the full Gold Cup, Euros qualifying, AFCON, because AFCON qualifying was wild, but a lot of teams did clinch qualification. But that's for another video. We have one more topic to talk about for you guys today. And it's briefly going to be going over what happened in the MLB first half. So we'll start with the American League. And we have the Rays still leading in first, but with the Orioles right behind them still them holding on. I mean, they've had a very good season at 54-35. Then you have the Jays, the Yankees, and the Red Sox all over 500. Know who isn't all over 500? The AL Central, as the Guardians are at 500. And then you have the Twins, who are half game back. And the Tigers, the White Sox, and the Royals. I had too much confidence in the White Sox. They're 8 games back. It's not over yet, but the White Sox may need to make some moves in order to really get themselves back. Because only one team is going to make it out of the Central. Who will it be? The Guardians, Twins, Tigers have really thrown themselves in the mix. They had a no-hitter, I believe it was yesterday or a couple days ago. And then we had, of course, the White Sox and the Royals have basically sent themselves out of the picture. But the AL West has also been kind of tight. Has been kind of tight as well, excluding Oakland. We have the Rangers still leading in first, followed by Houston. The Mariners have come back recently. They've won 7-10. And the Angels have fallen just like a lot of I thought in the beginning. I thought the Angels were going to fall a little bit, and they lost 9-10 to fall back to the pack, just below 500 entering the All-Star break. So the American League, the team I'm most surprised about, I mean, I didn't think Baltimore was going to be good. I thought Tampa was going to finish in third, and Baltimore was going to finish. I think I said them finishing fourth, and they've proved me wrong. It's my team that I predicted to win the division in the Yankees is in fourth. They've lost Judge for a while. They've had starting pitching woes. They fired their hitting coach. Their offense has been terrible. So they've had a lot of problems. Yes. Question is, will they be resolving those problems at the deadline? And I think they could be. We also had the MLB draft. I'm not talking about that. I didn't know enough about the players or anything like that, just to get that out of the way. But back to the Yankees. They've been very interesting. They have lost 6-10 entering the All-Star break, so it's not great form, but it could be worse. But the Red Sox have really made a run for this, trying to get into the 4th spot entering the break. They've won 8 of 10, and the Red Sox have looked pretty good, as have a lot of the teams in this division. Though the Rays have lost 7 of their last 10 games entering the break. So I'm very interested to see how they bounce back. We know Rosarena has played well. They've had other pieces play very well this season. And the Central's a mess. I don't really need to go into that. The Cleveland Guardians, though, I mean, they don't need to spend. It just really proves that you don't need to spend money to be really good. J-Ram still playing very well. The Twins, they have some good pieces. They have Correa. They have some good pieces in the rotation. I still think they can win this division. I still think the White Sox can make some moves. Try to add, because they've added pieces. They added a piece in the offseason, Benintendi. Some things just don't work out, but man, I really think the White Sox need to make a move. And then the West, I still think it's wide open, other than Oakland. But I'm interested to see how Seattle handles their next couple, the next little stretch, including the trade deadline. Because I really think the Mariners need to make a move, and I don't know where it's going to be. Maybe it's a bat, maybe it's a piece in the bullpen, rotation, just something. They need something to change, and that's just the way that they're going to need to be in order to really push themselves over the Astros, maybe even over the Rangers. Which is weird to say that the Rangers are in first in this division because they don't have DeGrom, yet they're in first. Nathan Eovaldi has looked really good. He's an all-star, I believe, this season. They've had other pieces really outperform what their projections were. So yeah, Texas in first place in the West. A very interesting first half in the American League. But the National League has been even weirder because we have my New York Mets in fourth. Jeez. And I don't even remember I had them in the Into the Stand season prediction because I went over them in depth. I thought Verlander was an iffy signing originally, and I was kind of right with it being iffy because he's looked okay. Max Scherzer just looked bad in first innings. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know what you do with him. I think he's a player option. He'll probably take that and come back again. So the Mets are in a very bad situation with some contracts. They may have to eat some of that money in order to get rid of those players. But man, it's a very interesting situation for the Mets where they are 18 and a half games back at the Braves, which is right in a city kind of close to where I am right now. But man, no one was expecting this. But it is what it is. Grant Hartwick's the best reliever on the Mets. I mean, losing Edwin Diaz is bad, but when Grant Hartwick's your best reliever, problems should be emerging for sure, and people likely will be traded. I'm interested to see if they buy, sell, or do nothing. I do think that do nothing is a right move, or sell. Buy is a very big toss-up. The Mets are going to need to be red hot out of the All-Star break in order to even have a thought of trying to make moves to add or not subtract. But that's a wait and see for sure. But the team that's really interesting to me is the Marlins, who have had Sandy Alcantara like kind of mid, and does have players outperforming themselves. Luis Arias is not still in that 400 on track to possibly get 400. You have other players really performing. The Marlins are a team that's not going to be a pushover. They were not like that in a couple of years ago. Granted, it was like a bubble season, but they still made the playoffs. So the Marlins are going to be in that mix as well for sure. And of course, you can't count out Philadelphia, who they have won. We're kind of hot for a little bit. But the Braves have won 8 of 10. The Mets have actually won 6 of 10. Same with Philadelphia. Nationals, it's kind of took themselves out of it. But at one point, you saw the Mets possibly being in fifth at one point in the division this season. If that roster shouldn't be happening. And I think people will be losing their jobs at the end of the year if things don't change quick. But moving on to the Central before I go on to a rant about the Mets, we have Cincinnati in first. I did not stumble, and that is not a typo. The Reds are in first, winning 7 of 10. And they have had some interesting pieces lead the way. I have been a very big fan so far of what Ellie De La Cruz has brought to the table. He brings a lot of speed, he brings power, he brings defense. He's done everything that the Reds have hoped for so far. He's been a very big impact for Cincinnati. He stole 3 bases in like his one at bat or something crazy. He's just that good. Right behind them, you have the Brewers, who are a game out. The Cubs, who are in third. Shout out to Chris Gambino, who thought they were going to be in the World Series. And be an underdog? Yeah, no. Sorry, dude. And you have the Pirates, who just totally imploded. 19 and 28 on the road. For context, that is the third worst in the National League. And at home, they're just over 500 at PNC Park this year. So very iffy from Pittsburgh after leading this division at one point. And you have the Cardinals, who are just flat out disappointed. 17 and 25 at home. That's the second worst home record in the National League and one of the worst in Major League Baseball. I mean, Cincinnati, will we see them add, or will we see them call up more prospects? They have to decide, because I think Milwaukee is going to go on and try and add. I think Chicago might try and add as well. Pittsburgh, I think, is going to stay put. I don't think they're going to do much. I think St. Louis could possibly subtract and try again in the offseason. But a very interesting situation for those teams in the National League Central. What's going to happen in this division? I have no idea. Though I still think the Brewers are going to. I mean, I had the Cardinals winning this division originally, but the Brewers in second. I'm going to have the Brewers win this division now. But I think the Brewers will be leading this division entering the deadline. You have to imagine they go add pieces maybe at the during this couple of day All-Star break. Could we see them in the first week after the break? So it's very interesting what the Brewers have at their disposal. They've won 6 of 10. The Reds have won 7 of 10. And the other three, I think, are going to be falling apart. So very interesting stretch to see where those top two teams in the Central go. And I still can't believe that the Cincinnati Reds are in first place. That's just how crazy this Major League Baseball season has been. I said it on Instagram, and you knew this season has been fully concluded to be one of the weirdest ones I've ever seen. When the Detroit Tigers do a combined perfect game. You don't see that with a team that bad. I still think the Tigers are building, and they've been building for, I don't know, 7 years now. Too long. And they're like the New Jersey Devils of baseball, where they rebuild, and then rebuild again. They try to add talent and then rebuild again. So, yeah, I mean, it's just weird to see something like that happen. But it's not as weird to see as the Diamondbacks and Dodgers tied for first in the National League West. You saw Corbin Carroll go with a knock for like a day, and he came back. He's going to win National League Rookie of the Year. They've lost 6 of 10 of the Diamondbacks entering the break. So they're not in the best form. But you know who is in good form? The Dodgers. And they've won 7 of 10 to put themselves right back into this. The Padres and Rockies are just falling apart. The Rockies, we all knew were going to be bad. They're 18 games out, but the Padres, wow. 8.5 games out. And granted, it's only 8.5. It's just about what the Mets are with a wild card, but my goodness. They're behind the Giants, who failed to get Correa. They're behind the Diamondbacks, who have been really good this season. But one thing really sets them apart for me, the Diamondbacks this year. They have the 4th best record in the National League on the road. Do what you will with that, but come playoff time, if they make the playoffs, I think that could be very crucial for them. But I think they need to add, I don't know what you add. Maybe more young players. I don't know. And they have a very interesting direction where they can go. But right now, I think there could be a lot of trades in the works. I think we could talk about that in a future episode. We have a trade deadline preview probably coming up around deadline time, probably around the 31st, probably in about 2 or 3 weeks. We'll probably talk about the deadline, because I do believe we have a stream on the deadline. Let me know if you want me to stream during the trade deadline, because I will stream during the trade deadline if you guys want that. But wow, what a season of Major League Baseball. We have the home run derby tonight. I hope you guys go and watch that. I hope you guys watch the All-Star game tomorrow. They both should be very, very interesting. But know what would be interesting? Another episode of the Robbie Basel show that comes out on Friday, because that is the end of our episode here today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do all that fun stuff. But for now, I'm Robbie Basel. We'll see you guys on Friday.